Tonight, the NAPA Longland Corp Formula College and CIL look to go racing for an oval this time. Tonight, we go blistering around Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway, for tonight's coverage of the Arch 175 here on Green Flag TV. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside me for tonight's coverage is someone very familiar with this field. He's the Cup Director when it comes to CIL. He also just so happens to have raced in this series this season. Kate Corbin is our co-announcer tonight. Dustin Ollis is our producer here this evening. Getting ready for an exciting one tonight as we have a field of about 12 drivers registered looking to battle here on the oval tonight. Cade, it should be an interesting night as we continue to blister through the schedule.
Absolutely. The oval racing with this new IndyCar package requires the driver to be incredibly busy. You've got a lot to manage. We've experienced it firsthand this season, most recently at Indianapolis for that Indy 500. Now we're back on the oval. The drivers have had a race under their belt to get used to all these new bells and whistles, to get used to that new aero package, and now they're going to put on a show. After this, we've only got one more oval, so the oval drivers are going to want to show up and make sure they can get it done tonight. So that way they can build as many points as they can getting ready to go into the second half of the season. Gateway puts on a show with this the IndyCar, so I'm excited to see what we're going to get tonight.
And so far the championship has had some interesting twists, but Jake Cummings is still at the top of the board. Wyatt Burden has been trying to charge up from the Trine University side for the past few weeks, though. Nathaniel Fryman in from Ball State in third. Then doing Batty along with Alex Hallinar amongst your top 5 of the point standing so far. Cummings has looked pretty fast to say the very least in this series, so it's going to be interesting how he fares out tonight with an oval where things could be a lot more different compared to Cummings' strength on the road course.
Yeah, but Jake did win. Actually, we did go to Auto Club this season there
Yes.
at the beginning of the year. Yes, I knew we had one more other than Indy. Most recently, we were at Indy. Before that, though, we were at Auto Club. Jake Cummings did win that race, and so we know he can get it done on the ovals. We know he can get it done on the road courses. Wyatt Burton got those last 2 race wins, but I don't believe he's going to be in the field tonight, taking a week off. So that's going to allow Jake to potentially pad that points lead. But a lot of other drivers that could take advantage of the chaos that we typically see when we only turn left. To make up some points here. Dylan Beatty's looked really good. Alex Hallinar looking for his first win of the season. And I think Matthew Monroe, Brendan Lyman, those are going to be 2 names to watch as potential sleeper picks.
It's going to be an interesting conversation for some of these drivers tonight as we get ready for Formula College. Brought to you by NAPA Longland Corp here this evening here from Worldwide Technology Raceway. Longland Corporation for your car, truck, SUV, and heavy-duty needs. Visit Napa and get the Napa know-how. And race fans, it's almost time for a brand new season of FTR. That's right, the FTR Almeida Racing Academy Endurance Series returns on Saturday, March 21st with multi-class racing action. The 6-race endurance schedule will visit iconic tracks such as Spa, Road America, Interlagos, and more. The best news, though, is there's still time for you and your team to sign up. Scan the QR code on your screen and join the FTR Discord today for more information. It's going to be a busy night for drivers. It's going to be a busy night for those in FTR in about a couple days' time. But we're 3 minutes out from tonight's racing action. We did have one driver have to serve a qualifying ban tonight, Garrett Greathouse, from acquired penalties. Outside of that, these drivers have already set the qualifying times for tonight. And just so happens that Jake Cummings is on the pole for that from Converse University. Then, making an appearance tonight, this is Nicholas Stockner making an appearance for the first time this season. In second, Dylan Beatty will start in third with Lucas Santos making a return for the University of Minnesota Twin Cities in fourth. Binghamton University's Alex Hallinar in the top 5. Nathaniel Fryman will start in sixth. Seventh goes to Matthew Monroe. Brendan Lyman in the top 8. Andrew Voigt starts in 9th with Josh Kempfer in the 10th position. And this driver, this is the 48 machine, Madison Ulrich from Otterbein University, will start in the 11th spot. Garrett Greathouse in the 12th spot tonight. Cade.
Yeah, we're seeing a couple of drivers making their first start of the season there. Madison Ulrich in that 48 machine. Nick Stockner coming back for a one-off. Won last season in Pocono. That was supposed to be his final year, but he decided to come help try to fill out the field, gather some data, and see if he can get it done one more time on one last oval. So the alum from Clemson is looking to maybe turn some heads in what could be his final start in this series, a series that he's been involved with for a very long time. Something else that we may want to keep an eye on is that race within the race. You noticed a few drivers have those triple-digit numbers. They're fighting for that alumni championship, which is kind of a secondary award to the overall title. Andrew Voigt, Josh Camphor in that category. So they're going to have a little bit of a special eye on each other to try to beat that other triple-digit number and be the best of the guys who've already graduated.
It's definitely going to be an interesting night for those competitors, and it will be a test for many to survive what may be potential a lot of attrition. You have 145 laps, after all, that are going to be up on the board tonight for Worldwide Technology Raceway. Obviously in this series, though, no fuel limits, but you'd have to think, have to be able to plot and plan the right strategy to be able to make it on fuel here tonight. How do you see the fuel mileage looking this evening?
The fuel mileage can honestly fluctuate a lot, and that's one of the hardest parts about strategy in these races. If you get a number of cautions, or if you're able to run around, maybe not necessarily in the back of the pack, but if you can get that draft off of the car ahead of you, you're going to be able to sit in the draft, conserve fuel, maybe run a different fuel map. And so you have this massive window that opens up. We might be able to see guys go 40 laps. We might be able to see guys get 50 laps. We might be able to see guys get 60 laps if we get some cautions. So there's a lot of opportunity to save some fuel. We might see a fuel mileage race at the end. We might see guys trying to cut out a pit stop from a longer run. But then tires come into play. No tire compound swap here. This is an oval, but tires still going to be very, very important. You can see you're going to be carrying a lot of speed through these corners. That's going to load those Firestone tires up, and it's going to lose a lot of grip as the run goes on.
Checker flag out for the warm-up session here tonight, so we will get reset and get up to the grid itself for the drivers to be able to make their final adjustments here. We'll say Worldwide Technology Raceway, of course, puts on some interesting races when it comes to this car. It's also home these days. You see the karting track, for example, that pops up. That complex has a lot of major races that it tracks over the year with some of the teams that work in Ignite chassis in particular in the karting scene. But tonight, the question will be here, Cade, what's the product going to look like for the racing? How do you make moves around this track to be able to get ahead?
I think one of the biggest keys is going to be a combination of the slipstream and the hybrid system. What these drivers have, it's not a push to pass necessarily, but it's a little bit of a system that allows the engine to save. It basically will donate a little bit of power to this hybrid reserve, and then when the driver's ready, they can push a button. It'll dump that extra power into the engine, give it a little bit extra horsepower, a little bit extra speed. And when you combine that with the draft on somebody going down one of these straightaways, that is how you make a pass. That's how it kind of was at Indianapolis there for the Indy 500 a few weeks ago. And I think this track is very, very similar in that respect. Even though it's a lot smaller, you have a long straightaway that leads into a sweeping flat corner. And then once you get down into that corner, you've got to take into account the dirty air. You've got to take into account, you can slow down, but you start slowing down too much, it's going to check up that whole lane. And so you've got this mix of carrying speed versus saving tires versus using the draft. And then, you want to try to pass somebody, you've got that extra option to jump up there on that hybrid button to make the pass. It's like I said, it's a lot going on. You've got roll bars in there, you've got weight jacker in there. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, as the show goes on. But right now, there's so much running through these drivers' heads when they're looking down at that box and they see, all right, I've got 10 different switches I can flip. How am I going to use those to maintain track position if I'm at the front and gain track position if I'm starting this race back at the rear?
Nicholas Stockner said over the radio, a good point, let's have some fun. I think the field should follow that advice. We're happy to have you with us here on Green Flag TV for tonight's coverage of the Collegiate iRacing League. It's Wormwood College ready to roll. Pace car off, green flag out. We're underway from Gateway. Scrape to the outside wall. Hold on. Stockner having to make sure he doesn't slam this car apart. A little bit of tightness there so far from the outside line. Cummings trying to work the inside for the race lead.
And once they...
just there had a technical blip pop up, but Cummings dropped to third in the midst of that. We'll say the Ball State machine in the 20 is on a roll for the race lead.
Dylan Beatty shoots to the inside. He's going to drift up on exit, though. Open up that door. Stockner is going to get the run on exit to draw back even on the back straightaway. He's going to try to pull ahead and once again clear into turn number 3. Now that is Nathaniel Fryman who is launching attack to the inside of Cummings for the 4th spot. Santos looking on, Lyman up to P6. That's how they run right now. Dead even for the lead, though, off into turn 1.
Right now, it's pretty clear that Stockner's got some good speed in that car with how he's able to battle it out. That 24 machine, 124 in terms of sim population, really making the outside work to defend. No one else able to get a bobble. Speaking of bobbles, Cummings nearly snapped up across Santos's nose. 4 cars stacked up behind as they battle for the race lead. Still, these drivers for third on back are lucky they haven't crashed a few times already.
Yeah, they've been racing really, really close. Santos nearly slams the wall right there. May have been just a tiny bit of contact. May have been the marbles flying up now. Riding along with Fryman as he is going to drop to the inside. Maybe just, he's going to be able to use the whole track here. He is clear, but they've brought Brennan Lyman and also Alex Hallinar into what's turned into a 5-car battle for the 3rd spot. They're looking on just ahead of them. It is still a dogfight for the lead. Dylan Beatty has now taken the top spot, but Stockner not far behind.
Look at Fryman trying to wrap the inside here. A little bit of a spook up that time for Santos again. And it seems like it's almost the game of who's willing to scare the other driver the most, Cade. That's a dangerous game, though, with the risk of contact, especially since this track has a lot of wash-up at the corners.
Yeah, a lot of wash-up. You've got a very fragile car. Also, no fast repair, something that we have talked about before. Even though it's an oval race, you get in that wreck, your day is done. But definitely aggression early from nearly the entire field as Fryman looking to get around Lyman on the inside. Now here is that battle for the 3rd spot as they actually get a big run on the lead. Santos not quite able to clear Jake Cummings. Now he gets it done, and he is going to draw right up to the side-by-side battle for the lead.
Once again, the poke is on to try and get around. Yet again, inside given. Stockner continues to play defense. Stockner not able to keep the lead, though. Washed up out of 4. Here's the swap back inside for Stockner. Looking to the inside, coming once again. Yet again, had to back up, though. Couldn't get the send to stick, and now he's getting freight trained.
Ryman grabbed the wall just a little bit in that 23 car. That's going to make him lose a spot to Jake Cummings. Cummings already down 4 on the day. Stockner now -1 as he gives up that spot to Lucas Santos. He was really, really aggressive on the short run. We saw him fighting Dylan Beatty, trying to get that clean air. Unfortunately, wasn't able to hold it. Now that 124 machine is back in traffic, and he's going to probably be at a little bit of a grip deficit compared to the rest of the field because of how hard he pushed on the short run. Dylan Beatty +2 to the lead, but he's under fire from Santos. Santos ran really, really well in the Indy 500, and we talk about the similarities between the 2 tracks. I think that bodes very well for that 13 machine today.
Definitely so. See right now, by the way, Lyman, he's got a 5. He just leapfrogged his way to 3rd. And thinking about that race over at Auto Club, it's been a while since we've seen that action, of course. But remember, that kind of set the tone for how things were going to look in the point standings. A lot of wide multi-groove racing initially to start off the season. But remember, some of the drivers had to play the strategy game in the first place to get chances there. For example, Burden, who's not here tonight, finished 14th in that same race. That's what put him behind the 8 ball in the points. The Ball State machine of Beatty was in the top 3. Santos, one of the top drivers from the CIL 500. Slipping to the front, back and forth for the lead still.
Yeah, Lucas Santos made a great move there, was able to grab the lead momentarily. Beatty, though, had the inside, washes up. Santos forced to give him a little bit of room, but luckily maintains momentum on corner exit. That opens up the door for Brennan Lyman to sneak around the outside. His 6th spot gained here today. Brennan Lyman from the Oklahoma Panhandle State University. Bobbles just a little bit there, but he's still going to be able to get clear. Santos breaks the draft on Lyman. Wow, nearly contact there as Beatty swung back up towards the wall. This battle is for the 2nd position. Dylan Beatty going to give it up and slide back in line.
So at this point, what are you doing in terms of trying to make sure you don't cook the tires at this point? Because it almost seems like slot cars where you get a run, someone makes the pass, you go back and forth. What's kind of the mindset, the mental game when it comes to these tires to make sure you don't fry them at this point? We're 16 laps in already, and we've already had 4 different leaders.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if Brennan Lyman and Nick Stockner lose any pace as this run goes on. I think those two have been the most aggressive at the start of this run in terms of pushing, making moves, running the outside, switching back to the bottom. You see here they're actually going to go after each other as Stockner looks to the inside of that 78 machine. They've toned it down just a little bit here recently, but those first 5 or 6 laps from both the 78 and the 124 were very, very aggressive. They were putting a lot of pressure on those tires, and so I think the real deficit is going to show up at about lap 30 in the run. They're going to realize, man, you know, I just don't have the grip. My tires are hot. They're slick. They don't want to turn. They don't want to go in the corner. You're going to have to change where you shift. You're going to have to use your tools. You're going to have to, you know, really try to work to get that car to make speed. It might happen. If it doesn't happen, that's going to change the mentality of the field where everybody realizes, hey, I can go balls to the wall lap 1 and I'm not going to have to pay the price for it. But if these guys do see a lot of fall off, specifically the 78, the 124, even the 13, although he's got clean air right now, so that's going to be a little bit of a help. But if those guys do fall off, it's going to have everybody, I think, practice a little bit more caution. Brennan Lyman, though, going for the lead, looking to the inside of Lucas Santos.
Yep, yet again, not able to do much yet, but Lyman was one of the drivers that looked pretty good speed-wise when we raced over at Ono Club. Did finish 9th in the end of that said race. Looking like he's saving a little bit on the gas here. And it's going to be interesting how the drivers maybe play around with those fuel maps. You talked about the vastly different numbers you're going to see tonight. Now that we're into the long run and it's looking like those tires are making it so hard to get a run built up here, are you playing around with those fuel maps in this situation, Cade?
I think absolutely. If you're in a position where you can run in line, as we see Nick Stockner not content to run in line, he's going to throw it to the bottom on the inside of Brennan Lyman. But I think as those tires lose grip, it makes it more difficult to run different grooves, and so you're forced to stay in a single file line. As soon as you're in that line, you know you're going to be getting some draft down the straightaway, so you might as well bump that fuel map up. You know, let's try fuel map 2. And then if I'm able to keep pace in fuel map 2, all right, I'll bump it up to fuel map 3. And if I'm still able to keep pace, you know, I might throw it to the fuel map 4. And just in that way, you're going to try to either eliminate a pit stop or make a pit stop shorter by having to take less fuel during that stop. As we see nearly contact from the wall for Lyman, actually gets a great over-under and goes for the lead clear of Lucas Santos.
Wow.
But everybody outside this, really other than the top 3, they've got to be playing with the fuel map, playing with the roll bars, weight checker, everything. Stockner barely clear on corner exit. He leads that lap. But yeah, everybody farther back in the pack right now, I think, is looking to save some fuel and put themselves in a better position strategy-wise. Huge wash-up from Santos, but he saves it.
He's pushed very tight the past 2 to 3 laps, in fact. That's why he's really dropped back outside of the top 3. Just seems like he's really burned up the right front and is plummeting down. The race leader is still battling up at the front. There comes Lyman on the inside. Stockner again on the outside. Yet again, the squeeze on from Stockner, and he's hit. Stockner hit at the wall. Crash involves the Ball State machine. Abadi, caution flag is up for the first time tonight.
That was an absolutely huge wreck down the back straightaway, probably close to a quarter of the field, if not more. You mentioned it, Stockner, Brennan Lyman, they were dead even coming off the corner. I think they just ran out of room, and once that 124 car got turned sideways on the straightaway, it was nowhere to go for a good chunk of the rest of the field. Here it is, that's Lyman on the inside. Stockner was actually the one on the outside. Can't tell if there was net code there, but I think the 78 car drifted up, the 124 held his line, and the contact happened there.
A lot of heavy damage picked up, in particular for the 20 machine. Left front wing at the very least is sheared off. Race potentially done for Stockner. Both wings completely sheared off the race car. And as you can see, this is interesting because the position of the pace car, some could not pit. Here's a look at the replay for the leader's view.
I think there was definitely a little bit of a gap between those two cars. the entire time. I think the netcode was not beneficial at all. This might give us a little bit of a better view at it. Although contact was kind of impending anyways. I think they were going to come together even if the gap was not there. But I mean, yeah, you come up off the corner so tight and not able to make it work. This right here might be able to get these guys in a position where it's one pit stop on fuel. We'll see how this sorts out. Everybody is down pit road except for the leader, Brennan Lyman. So we're watching Lucas Santos lead the field into pit road. If he can be the first one off, that'll be the best position for that 13 machine.
They did confirm no further action for that incident because there was internet distance, let's call it, between those two cars. And as a result, our first major crash. We'll see a lengthy stop for the 20, and Stockner is already done.
And I think that was kind of the mentality that 124 machine was showing from the get-go. He's not out here fighting for points. He's not fighting for that season-long prestige. Kind of checkers or wrecker situation for the 124, and he was trying to experiment early, to think, all right, if I get myself in a position, where I'm in this same spot at the end of the race, I want to know what to do. So let's use these first 20 laps to practice battling for the lead. And unfortunately, that battle turned sour, and he's going to find his day done. Brennan Lyman now dropping down pit road. Justin, you mentioned it. The way the pace car wasn't really a good opportunity for Lyman to pit under that first lap. So he unfortunately going to have to pit under the second lap so he doesn't get too far behind on strategy. And that is what's going to cycle Lucas Santos to first, Nathaniel Fryman up to second. How about Josh Kampfer, Kansas State driver? He's got himself in position to restart P3.
Interesting for Kampfer in particular, gained a lot of track position off the stop. One of the Kansas State machines that has been very quiet over the course of his starts this season. Lyman, by the way, because of that go-around you did refer to, it's going to be at the back of the field. How frustrated are you at the 78? Because that was all based on pace car, why he just had to put the second time coming to the one to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I personally would be very, very livid about. Behind the wheel, I'd be yelling at somebody. Brennan, I think, is a little bit more level-headed than I am, so he's going to be able to hopefully put this one behind him. I mean, he's still restarting in the top 10. He's only got really a few cars between his car and the pace car, and of course plenty of laps to go, still over 100 laps to go. Lyman has shown he can drive his way up through the field, and I think he's going to use what he learned on that first run to go out there and do it again. So Lyman, brush it off, plenty of time. We'll see if he can get back to the front.
Restart time coming up to lap 28. We're back on our way. Green for Santos. Fryman was able to get a good jump with them, but a lot of these drivers will have to think, how are they going to get some passes built up here? See, some of those are happening at the back of the field as the 48 lets drivers on goal. Ulrich lets drivers just zip on by, no contest.
Yeah, Madison Ulrich in that debut for Otterbein. You've got Brendan Lyman incredibly fast. He's trying to come around the outside, battle for the lead. Lucas Santos was in the wall. Josh Kampfer now goes to the first position. Santos all the way back to P5, as I think that car did get in the wall, coming off a 4, in the wall again, smacks it off a 2, and here is exactly what happened.
Got loose out of 4, saved it, got hit by Fryman, and that could have been much worse up at the front. Watch this from Fryman. You have to react quickly to this kid. See that in a moment here.
And that's a split-second decision that you have to make. You're acting on instinct at that point. You're not really consciously reacting to that car jumping sideways in front of you. Watch this. Wow. I think a little bit of luck and a little bit of freaking out happened there behind the wheel of that 23 machine. You could see, though, Santos, that back end was already stepping out as he was getting into the corner, got down to the curb, basically touched the red and the white, unsettled the nose of the car, and nearly spun it out. How about Lucas Santos, though? Put it behind him. He's driven back up to third. Now he wants second from the car that he just almost wrecked. And we're going to see right here, Fryman at the last second commits to the bottom. No damage to either car, but Santos is back up to second. Brennan Lyman is at the back end of this battle. He's driven from 10th to 6th. In about 4 laps, and now he's looking for P5, and he's going to get it on the outside of Alex Halinar.
There's the move on the inside. Fryman Trying to make this pass back, though. Yet again, a little lift into the corner exit. Make sure there's no contact. By the way, Lyman seems to be one of the best drivers on the outside line this entire race so far. He's taken it up to the third groove, getting a good run for the straightaways, and just like that, just jumped up to third. 78's made up the spots just about no problem here.
Yeah, he's found a way to get that car to stick where other cars aren't. You know, you can't just go up and drive through somebody. You got to go around him. And so Lyman has found, hey, if they're all going to wrap the bottom, I'll put that car on the outside. I won't have to worry about washing up on exit. I'll just be able to stay in the throttle and maintain momentum. So he's been able to make that second, almost third groove work. Gets him a run down the straights right here. He might pull to the inside of Lucas Santos. Although that time he decides not to. We're going to see him stick right in line, and then right there, boom. Santos chucks it down to the bottom, hits the apex, but Lyman is able to maintain momentum. That is Josh Camphor, I think, a blown engine.
Don't think he blew the engine, but he definitely just about spun the car out from the race lead. Got to make sure you get the right weight jackers. He absolutely grip rolled and nearly spun it, and he's dropped all the way to the back because of it on his own.
Saw that puff of smoke, and I thought that that must have been a money shift. Luckily, it wasn't. This is much easier to recover from if you are Josh Camphor, but he's going to go all the way back to the 6th position. He's going to have a lot of extra heat in those Firestone tires, and that is going to hand the lead of the race back over to Santos under fire from Brennan Lyman. But if these two decide not to get side by side, well, they're going to go side by side. I was going to say they could potentially drive away from the field, but Brennan Lyman shoots to the bottom. He's going to be clear on corner exit, new leader here at Gateway.
Lyman still having to fight this out, though, and the more they scrap, there is the potential here to swap draft, or they can hold each other up. They're going to instead hit each other. Santos had to get out of the gas. Lyman zips on by. Here comes Fryman on the chip away.
That was really cool. That was almost the exact same incident that we saw earlier. Lyman on the outside, car on the inside, drifts up just a little bit, and almost a race ender. Lucas Santos not going to sleep, though. He's going to have another shot at the lead. That's going to allow Fryman, Cummings, Hallinar, everybody that's in that line to get just a little bit closer to the lead. They're doing a good job drafting, staying in line, making pace, while these two up front are fighting each other. I want to go back to something you said, Justin, about the potential for the weight jacker to be the item that caused the issue for Josh Camphor. What exactly does that do to allow these drivers to get their cars to behave differently in clean air?
Well, when it comes to that, obviously you make adjustments to the balance with that said weight jacker, where if you put too much in it onto your dialing for the weight jacker, it can cause you to spin around. Not enough, and you push tight. It's a way to really adjust the balance of the car while you're racing. And right now, Hallinar trying to make some adjustments to the inside for his mark. Battle for 4th position. Race lead still not done. Yet again, they continue to swap. They've built back up a 1 second cushion, and they hit again! Second time we've seen a slam with Santos off the corner. Second time with internet distance between the two of them.
And that is going to probably end the race for Brennan Lyman. He had such a good car. He'd driven up to the front not once but twice in just the first third of this event, and he is going to be saddled with the DNF. Take a look at it again. Santos starts to drift up. Lyman is there, but so is the net code. Very fortunate that it's only a one-car incident, but that one car is destroyed.
2 incidents, exact same incident type. And what do you do now if you are in this situation? I think Santos might be in a spot where he can't even pit. Yeah, he is past the pace car. He's got to back up. He's going to enter the pit road before the pace car even gets there.
Yeah, you can't do this. This is the mistake that I've made before. You have got to let the pace car by if you are the leader. You see everybody else is going to slow down. They're all going to pit. Fryman clipped the commitment box there. I don't know if that's going to be a penalty or not. Santos is likely going to get, he's going to get black flagged. Meanwhile, the rest of the field intelligently is holding up to let the pace car get ahead of them. You want to make sure you don't pass them running the apron. So Fryman going to lead the field down the pit road. He should know that he is going to inherit the lead. No, he's not. He did clip that commitment box. So the top two, Santos and Fryman, penalized under pit stops here with just over 100 laps to go.
Lyman is officially out of the race. Race control is going to look potentially on the penalty for the commitment box side, by the way. Remember, he was also trying to back up before he reached that commitment area in the sim to where it started to count down for when he was going to reach speed limit. Fryman is the first off pit road, followed by Cummings, Hallinar, Camphor, Voigt, Greathouse, Monroe, then Ulrich, and then you have Dylan Batty, who is trying to get 10 waiver rounds out of that. So we'll find out how this all goes, because it gets a little bit nervous around the 13, we'll say, with two different situations. Santos, for his mark, says, I had no contact.
Yeah, we'll see if they decide to rule that one. I think they've got to sort out the pit issues first. The penalty, I think, was it's going to wind up being either a pass-through or even another hold that he'll have to do here.
Drive-through. If
it's going to get drive-through penalty, yeah. So Santos is probably going to have to serve that under green, which is going to hand the lead over to Jake Cummings. If he gets an additional penalty for the incident, I don't think he will. I think it's very similar to the first one, like we saw. A car on the inside washes up, a little bit of a racing incident, a little bit of net code. So I don't know if he's going to get a penalty for that exactly. But if he does, he'll have to find a way to serve a second penalty, and that could basically put the 13 car out of this race. So, I mean, he's still going to be in it, but out of contention to win. We'll see exactly what happens to the 13. He is still pacing as the leader for the moment.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
Can't confirm that race control will not clear the penalties. And here is a rough one. Oh, we have a crash. Fryman just hit the back end of Ulrich. Well, this just compounded pretty quickly, didn't it?
And Fryman was the other car that had that black flag. We're going to extend the yellow here to clean this one up, which is good because we got plenty going on. Fryman was the one who had clipped that box. The commitment box there on the entry to pit road, comes out of the pits at the back of the field. I think there was a little bit of a checkup. You see, it's kind of like a ripple effect. It's going to accordion. They're all running in a line. The field is going to slow down just a little bit. Maybe. Yep. Oh, and yep, Fryman is not able to get on the binders quick enough and runs over the rookie and destroys the front wing of that Ball State machine.
Well, this just got interesting. Some of your top contenders have already crashed. You also have Ulrich now going to have to get wing damage. You have two drivers with black flags that have to be served under green, and departures in a pear tree. You know, busy night, and we're not even at 101 laps to go in this race. They will give the lap back to the 20, by the way, because the wild thing was he was not going to get it from the sim because of Fryman in where he was positioned with the pace car, apparently, compared to the 20. In other words, they give the 20 at least a lap back, and he is happy. But we're coming up to the restart with Santos, Cummings, Hallinar, Camphor, Voigt. Your top five, and we're going to delay this restart again to make sure everyone's ready to go, 100 to go when we get back going.
Yeah, Dylan Beatty's got to come around, catch the field. He's 10 laps down, out of contention to win, but he does have the opportunity to finish ahead of drivers who wreck out. I mean, if somebody wrecks out with more than 10 laps to go, that's a position that Beatty can pick up. He's likely going to be scored ahead of Brennan Lyman by the time this one's over. So that's the incentive for Dylan Beatty to go ahead and run. You talk about Wyatt Burton not even being in this race. Dylan Beatty has the opportunity to gain some points there. So he's going to want to try to finish this one out with as least amount of laps down as possible. You've got Nathaniel Fryman on pit road still fixing damage. He also has a penalty to serve. Lucas Santos is going to have to come in under green to serve his penalty, which means that even though he's going to be the control car for this restart, Jake Cummings is likely going to inherit the lead. So that'll be kind of the focus there. Jake Cummings, Alex Hallinar are going to wind up being 1-2. Josh Camphor has recovered from that scary moment there in turn 4. He's put another set of tires on. He's, everybody's pretty much good on fuel to make it on one more pit stop. So you're going to have Camphor restarting in a really good position. He should inherit the third spot just ahead of Andrew Voigt, who will likely move up to fourth. Now the lights on the pace car are out. Santos is going to lead us to the green, and he wants as good a jump as he can so he can serve that penalty.
Here we go, pace car dropping off. I think it's just about past the pace car again, coming up to the restart box. Here we go. Cummings trying to gas it up. Instead, it's pulled away by Santos up in the front. Everyone else seeing some moves like Matthew Monroe charging up the inside of the Ball State machine. Penalty for that, by the way. So let's add another black flag.
And now
Santos got cleared for his black flag. Cade, you were race director when it comes to Cup. Your take on that?
Well, like I said, this is something that I've seen before. I was leading a goofy race that we were doing at Kansas. We were messing around, and I pitted before the pace car, and I put my puppy eyes on, and I begged with the race director, and I said, look, you know, the pace car wasn't rendered in my mirror because I was running on a little laptop that I have. I can't render all the cars. I can't see the pace car behind me. There was no way for me to know that I was supposed to let the pace car by. So there may have been a situation like that where Santos is, hey, you know, I'm only rendering 20 cars, or, you know, I can only draw 20 cars or 18 cars, you know, whatever the minimum is. I didn't even know the pace car was there. And so if he's got some sort of limitation with his hardware there, where he's not able to cover the distance back to where the pace car wasn't even see it in his mirror, he may not have known. That may have been the argument that he made. He may have made the argument of it being a really risky position. It kind of is what it is at this point. I think if you're the rest of the field, you can't be too mad because it was such a scramble getting to pit road. But Santos does have that black flag cleared. He was also able to open up a 7/10 of a second gap. So my producer did remind us there are only 12 cars in this field, so drawing 20 cars shouldn't impact whether or not the pace car is there, unless it's far enough behind that it's kind of out of your immediate vicinity. That could be another way that he's got those graphic settings turned down to make sure that he is not contributing to the netcode issues. So I don't know if that's exactly what happened. That's the only explanation that I can think of. But you know, the race director is up there in the tower tonight. Ben Fiore has done a lot of good work for this series, and I think he decided, you know what, we got 100 laps to go. There was a little bit of a calamity going on. We'll clear it and let the boys race.
It's an interesting situation. I think for Fryman's it would have been cleared because it was so ticky-tacky in terms of distance. Santos is a discussion trying to get clarification from official race control side of things to make sure. But all of this as well, for some of the others like Camphor, you can see trying to minimize the steering motions here. Everyone staying relatively spread out. No side-by-side battling like we've seen in the initial first two runs of this race.
And I think this is going to lend us to get a little bit of a longer green flag run. Both of those cautions that have come out have come from very aggressive battles for position up at the front of the field where you're getting side by side, you're getting in dirty air, you're getting a little bit desperate. Now you're going out and you're kind of going back to what we had started to talk about earlier. Okay, is there a way that I can save fuel? Is there a way that I can save tires? How can I position myself to minimize my time on pit road, to pit at the optimum time to be in the best spot at the end of this race? So I think we'll get a little bit of a short run, or we'll get a little bit of a short time at the beginning of this run where everybody's fighting for track position. You can see that side-by-side battle there. That is Camphor and Hallinar, a couple of alumni duking it out. But as this run goes on, they're going to get back into that strategy mentality of saving fuel, saving tires, positioning. We do want to add, by the way, Nathaniel Fryman out of this race. Dylan Beatty 10 laps down. Matthew Monroe has lost a lap. Madison Ulrich was able to get most of that damage repaired, but the Autobahn machine is well off the pace, and will probably need a yellow to come out pretty quick to stay on the lead lap for the 48 car. So that effectively only leads us with 6 or 7 machines that are on the lead lap and capable of winning this race. So you know who you're racing. You've got less than 100 laps to go. Let's get our strategy lined up and let's play it out.
That's what a lot of these drivers are thinking about here. We know Hallinar in particular looks like he's hungry for a spot, saying, okay, we've gone status quo for a bit. Like to the left, didn't want to force it in, knowing Cummings was going to block the inside, it looks like. But we'll try and get the slice and dice for the back straightaway. We go for the fuel saver, the send. There's the send, as to be expected with that initial line. There he goes for P2.
Well, I don't think he's going to get it quite yet. Jake Cummins is going to get a really good run off the outside, and he's going to have the slipstream down the straightaway, drafting up to the back end of that 13 car. That allows Cummings to get clear by about a length. But when they got side by side, that opened up the door for Camphor to stay in this battle, and that has what has broken the top 4 away from the rest of the pack. They've put up a big gap back to Andrew Voigt. I think Lucas Santos was thinking about breaking out the Dragon right there and snaking a little bit on corner exit. He didn't do it, but it almost looked to me like he twitched left on the wheel just a hair as if he wanted to. I think that's going to be a strategy that we'll see at the very, very end of this race. A little bit too early to be snaking right now. Santos runs the outside to defend the lead. Cummings not willing to send it deep enough to get clear, and for the moment, he's content to stay in P2. Madison Ulrich has brought it down pit road again. I believe there was still some damage that was unrepaired on that 48 machine, so we'll take a look at what happened. Just a spin. Yep, just getting loose. Oh, and then big contact to the inside wall as well. That might be day over for the 48.
Yeah, and that is another driver added to the DNF list. That'll put us just 6 on the lead lap. Still have 86 laps to go this time by Howard. We run it over the back end of Cummings to the inside, but here comes Camphor. Looks like Camphor at least willing to try to make a move here. You see the alumnus colors alongside Howard and that 172 of Camphor. There goes the Kansas State car to take over the 3rd spot.
There's really only 4 or 5 cars left in this lead pack, but they are duking it out. Putting on a pretty good show here for the moment. Jake Cummings has opened up a little bit of a gap. I think Camphor got checked up just a hair coming off the corner. Could have opened the door for Halidar to drop to the bottom. He decides to stay in line. Actually would prefer the top. Get some clean air on the nose of that machine, and it looked like was going to have a pretty good run off the corner. Camphor slammed the door, and now they're all going to get to run whatever lane they want down here in the turn. I think that's a big part of the lane choice. You don't always want to follow the car in front of you around through the corner. If you have the opportunity to, you want to be in the different lane so you've got clean air and maximum downforce. Right here, Camphor, it looks to me, is running just a little bit of a different cornering line. Not exactly running in a different groove, but he's getting the nose pointed so that he always has downforce on the left or right front corner, and that is allowing him to keep pace with the cars in front. Andrew Voigt trying to drive back up to that pack. Earlier, the gap between he and the pack was about a full second. Now it has come down to just over a half second. So he's making good lap time even without the draft. And if he does an appropriate job of maybe saving some tires, he could be very, very fast on the tail end of this run since he hasn't been battling for position for the last 60 laps.
Keep an eye on how this plays out. Voigt, by the way, months of Eddie staying consistently in the 25 4s and 5s. Ran into the 3s, in fact, last time by, with a little bit of the suction of the draft.
He's getting close enough now where he's going to be able to get that draft to get him a nice run down the straightaway. He was close to a 10th or 2 faster than the battle in front of him. Camphor and Hallinar going at it tooth and nail for the 3rd spot. If they get side by side, yes, they are going to get side by side as there was nearly contact. That is going to open up the door for Andrew Voigt to get a pretty big run on these guys. They caught up to Jake Cummings in a hurry right there. I think Cummings had a moment. So we're looking at a 4-car battle getting set up for the 2nd position as Lucas Santos kind of sneaks away. Cummings maybe wanted to shut the door, but it was a very late decision, thinks better of it, and Josh Camphor is through for the 2nd position.
He's actually been having a very solid race, you can say, in regards to his sake. Camphor, for reference, a little bit of a slide there again going on, you see, with some of the drivers, but was about to say for Camphor. Missed a few races to start off the season. His best race he's appeared in is around 15, 16 spot. So far, he's been surviving tonight and looks to have some decent speed. Now he's got track position. Cummings under attack by one of the alumnus.
Cummings going to be able to defend that position. Back on Josh Camphor, I think I've been calling the races long enough that I kind of remember when he came into this series. I think I've been in the booth or been around at least for all of his starts in the CIL. And I think to date, this is probably the most consistent that he has run inside the top 3, probably his best race to date in that 172 machine. He's been tearing it up in the CIL Cup Series as well. Racing on Mondays as Hallinar makes a great move around the outside. Pretty risky, but he got that car dialed in to clear Cummings for the 3rd spot. But Camphor holding on to second right here. You mentioned he survived, and that's what got him some track position. But remember, he was all the way back to 6th or 7th at one point after nearly spinning that car. Instead, made a pretty good save, has dialed it back in, and he has now cut the lead down to half a second on Lucas Santos. He wants to get back to the front so we can have the opportunity to do it differently that time and stay there instead of letting that car get loose.
Just trying to run a little bit lower in the middle of the corners. Hallinar does have that pull on the draft, and keep in mind these drivers did have the updates recently to the IndyCar package, to the current rules package for 2026. Now with the potential of the iRacing connection to a video game for IndyCar. Now, in some cases, some of the racetracks, in particular Arcade, won't necessarily be the talking point. Richmond, some drivers felt it wasn't really a factor there, but this should be a track that we've seen some of those aero updates really come into play here, and that's why we're seeing this really steady out.
Yeah, I think the cars right recently here in Season 2 came out just over a week ago now. I think it was a couple of days ago. It was recent that the Season 2 update for the IndyCar got patched just a little bit. It came out with the season update, but it was patched as well after the initial Season 2 release came out, and it was supposed to add just a little bit more power, a little bit more speed, basically just making the cars all around better. I think a little bit less aero-sensitive, a little bit more power. Of course, the hybrid system, they've been checking that to make sure it's as accurate as it can be. They've been checking the tools to make sure those are as accurate as they can be. Talk about the roll bars, the weight jackers. So the update and then the patch that have come out here in the past few days, yeah, this is one of the tracks where that is really going to change how the IndyCar drives compared to what it would have been like if we had run this race a couple of weeks earlier and it had taken place in Season 1. And so yeah, I think that's what you're seeing today is you have that opportunity to run a few different grooves, to make a pass. And I think as this run goes on, we're going to see the opportunity where the guys who want to save tires are going to be able to come back at the end of the run, whereas with the old package, they would have fallen back saving tires, but the aero wash would have been so bad and they wouldn't have had enough of a difference to be able to make those positions back up. So I think this update is going to overall be an improvement. We don't have a direct comparison because we didn't race here in Season 1 of 2026 for iRacing, but we did race at some similar tracks. I know we raced at Milwaukee last season, and that race got very, very spread out. It was a little bit much less of a strategy race. As to the inside goes Camphor. Lucas Santos keeps the lead clear off the outside, but I think this is the closest comparison to that. This race has been a little bit closer, and I think more in the driver's hands than Milwaukee was back in Season 13 of the CIL, and that I think the drivers are kind of happy about this new update.
So right now as we go, by the way, the race lead is heating up with Camphor now in the front. Santos hits the wall. Santos trying to keep it on the outside, pushed up. Now Camphor looks to try and play some defense here. Working away already past the halfway point. Camphor slides back in front. Santos with the boost back.
Yeah, this is the second time today that Camphor and Santos have been battling for the lead. Got a new player in the mix, though. Alex Hallinar sitting in the third spot, watching these two get side by side. Talked earlier about Lucas Santos opening up close to a 1 second gap. I think he burnt his stuff up a little bit. I think just the way he was driving the car, maybe the way he had one of those roll bars set, it looks like the right front tire of that car is a little bit hot and a little bit down on grip. That's allowed Camphor to power around the outside and get the lead here, and it's drawn Hallinar into the battle. Jake Cummings has dropped back a little bit, but I think he's going to try to drive his way back up into this one. Voigt's within 2 seconds. Santos has the outside. Does he want to take it into 3? I don't think so. He's going to tuck back into line now, peeking to the outside. If he can stay there, he's going to get a run down the straightaway.
Look at this. Can he keep it on the high side, though? There's already been contact twice, side by side, out of 2. This time, Santos drives on by. Camphor lets him have it. Santos retakes the lead so far. 46 laps led for the 13 tonight. He's maintaining a decent pace when it comes to his car. You see some of the other leaders, though. No one else double digits yet.
And it wouldn't surprise me if we get Santos or somebody else to come up and lead a bunch of laps and get above the 60 or 70 laps led mark. If you can get that clean air and you haven't burned that tire up, as the run goes on, it gets more and more difficult to pass. Really good job there by Santos. He lost the lead for a few laps, but then was able to get it back from Josh Kampfer. And I think on the old tires, that is something that's very difficult to do. So props to Santos for that one. Going back to something we mentioned at the beginning, I know we didn't make a formal pick, but I was working with Santos in the Indy 500. I was in that race, and then I crashed out. And I decided to go hop in there and work with Santos. And so I was spotting for him and helping him out a little bit. And he was really, really solid, really, really smooth. I think if it weren't for a strategy play at the end, he would have been able to win that race. And so really, really solid guy. Been able to, like you can see there, lead basically a majority of this race, basically almost all of this race. And I think he's going to be able to stay there. If he can stay ahead of Josh Kampfer, that is going to be something I think he's going to be able to do. Just it caught my mind there. Dylan Beatty dropped down pit road. Even though he is a good number of laps off the lead lap, he's now gone 11 laps down. He was on a position where he had pitted about 20 laps sooner than these lead lap cars, stayed out under a yellow to get a wave around. But that means that anywhere from 15 to 20 laps from now, we're going to see the lead lap cars come down to pit. That's going to be their final stop of the day, and your execution on pit road is probably going to determine your placement in the outcome of this race.
It's going to make things all the more tricky as we go here. Whereas out of pit road, you mentioned the 20. So some of the drivers, also like Fryman, just a couple laps ago, also returned after several minutes of repairs. So a few of the drivers are at the very least trying to salvage points at the least, gain some ground. Now, of note as well, with all things being considered here, Voigt has found his way past Cummings, so Cummings has dropped as far back as 5th here. See Voigt just been taking his time here, hasn't really been pushing it. He's been running the same laps as the leader right now, but hasn't had the track position because no one's able to charge up to the leader. Speaking of which, they're battling again.
Well, Kampfer's been able to charge up to the leader, is able to look to the inside, wants that lead again for Kansas State. Not going to be able to shove it to the inside. Santos kind of runs the middle a little bit and then moves down on corner exit, takes some of the air away from the nose of that 172 and is able to drive away just a little bit. Now 53 laps led for Lucas Santos, and he's going to be thinking about when he wants to pit. Here's a lead lap car, Garrett Greathouse, teammate to Josh Kampfer. He's the first lead lap car to pit, the 66, likely on pit road for the final time today.
This should be the opening of the window, as you said, for these drivers to think of what can they do, what can they try.
Here comes Santos. Santos pitting.
There they go. So this gets them out of the clean air. 45, 46 laps in the distance. Can they make it 60?
I think it's going to be really, really close. If we see some yellows, they may consider saving it. I think that this may just be a short pit. He's trying to go for a really, really big undercut. You look at the last caution came out, we restarted somewhere around 100 laps to go. Splitting it 50 and 50 might be possible. We're going to see Josh Kampfer drop in now. He's going to have to go 57 on that final tank. Nearly spins it coming into pit road, but got that car locked down. He is okay and into the box. Saw some smoke right as we cut away. But yeah, Josh Kampfer is fine. That could be the Jake Cummings strategy here. We've seen him drop back, as now Andrew Voigt's going to pit, Hallinar cycle to the lead. If these guys are able to save enough fuel, they may be much more comfortable to go 50 and 50 and not be saving at the end of the race. Everybody else, meanwhile, has elected to go hard right now, which is what we saw with Santos and Kampfer going up there battling for the lead. They decided that they wanted to go fast now, and they're going to worry about saving later. Hallinar Cummings have saved now, so they're going to be able to go fast at the end of the race. They've stayed out, so I do think this is just an undercut from Josh Kampfer and Lucas Santos. Kampfer's actually cycled out ahead of Santos, though, even though there it is. No, this is the rejoin, and Kampfer had to give that spot back up.
Hearing there might be playing around with fuel maps, by the way, for Cummings, because those numbers talked about. He's right now at nearly 50 laps on the distance. So a couple drivers are playing around with mappings to try and save a bit. Cummings only running 183 into the corners.
and he's all the way down in 4th gear. You see a lot of off throttle time. He's got to play with it to keep that car centered, but once he gets out there on the straightaway, he is down and he's pitting now. So we'll see. I think he's going to have to try to stretch it to 54. Everybody else is going to have to try to stretch it 57, 58, whatever it is, or just hope that a caution comes out to basically get rid of all of this strategy. But you've got Jake Cummings, Alex Hallinar. This is going to be the entire field having pit. So we'll see how big of an advantage the undercut is for Lucas Santos and Josh Camper.
Interesting for the drivers as they finish up the service here. See how Hallinar stays to the inside for his measure with that strategy call.
Oh,
and he's got contact! Crash into the wall. Santos is in it. Santos has broken the front end. No one's around to trigger the caution. We stay green as Cummings finishes his pit stop.
And Santos has had to toe to pit road. He is off the track. Meanwhile, here's the rejoin for Cummings. Hopefully, it goes a little bit cleaner than Hallinar's rejoin. It looks like they're going to stay in line, and Josh Camper may have cycled to the lead, as there could be a little bit of damage on the left rear of that 057 car. Andrew Voigt's now up to the 3rd spot. Jake Cummings maintains the lead, but he is under fire from Josh Camper as Camper tries to wrap around the outside, and to the lead once again goes the Kansas State alum.
As a result of the chaos you see right here. Yeah, Hallinar got loose, as you said, and that indeed is going to cause another ripple for this race. It's now 2 purple cars for the conversation. You have a 4-lap difference for Cummings on the fuel mark compared to his competitor. Here's the look on board from him.
And this is cold tires, 100% this is cold tires. Hallinar comes out of the pits. He's got a fresh set on. He's not quite up to speed yet. He's entering the corner in kind of a weird way because he's coming off the pit road, gets down into the corner, and he just doesn't have a lot of grip. It is so easy to lose these cars when your tires aren't up to temperature and you're not driving them in the typical way, which is exactly what happened there. Hallinar kind of lucky that he got pointed in the right direction. Santos kind of ran him over. Santos didn't have anywhere to go, but Santos got into the back of him, and it kind of corrected that 057 car back into the right direction. I think Hallinar was going to spin if there hadn't been contact. So I don't know how much damage there is to the 057. I think he's down on speed a little bit. But the bigger factor now, I think, is going to be the fuel game. If you can make it to the end of the race without having to save too much, you're probably going to be able to cycle yourself out towards the lead. Still 5 cars on the lead lap, and 4 of those 5 are in the fight for the win.
50 laps indeed to plan things out now for the rest of this pack. And right now, Hallinar, at the very least, despite that contact, doing well with his car. Voigt continues to maintain the Penn State machine as we wrap things about at the moment. As you can see, Cummings, by the way, as you expect, just allowing the fuel to sip, sip, sip. No interest to pass, obviously. Trying to let Camper burn up more of his stuff here.
And this reminds me of bike racing. If anybody's ever watched bicycle racing, you've got the Tour de France, you've got indoor cycling as well. Those are some fantastic sports. But it's a very similar thing where you want the leader to do the work, right? You want to be behind the guy who's pushing through the air, making that happen. In this case, it's not so much an aerodynamic thing as it is a fuel burn thing. But Jake Cummings wants Camper to burn his fuel, push through the air, open up that draft for Cummings to get in behind him. He wants to be in second right now so that he's making the other guy do the work. Exact same thing right here. Alex Hallinar wants Andrew Voigt to be using more fuel to push through the air so that Hallinar doesn't have to do the work. And if it works out for him in the long term, Hallinar is going to be able to make this pass at the end of the race. If it doesn't work out for him, Andrew Voigt right now has the track position, so very much cat and mouse, and it's going to take all 45 of these laps for it to play out.
All sorts of thinking on where to go. drive-through, possibly. We'll keep an eye on this. Hallinar has an investigation under the radar that's involving the contact with the 13 of Santos, who's now out of the race. Black flag is confirmed. Hallinar will have a penalty.
And this is going to be a pretty standard drive-through penalty. He might be able to avoid going 2 laps down. I think he's definitely going to lose 1, though. The amount of time that you take going through pit road, especially the way that you got to enter this pits. Right here, he's going to likely drop down off the backstretch. No, he's going to elect to wait a lap. He has a couple of laps to serve this penalty, but when he does pit, it's going to be there at the end of the back straightaway that he drops down to the apron, and he's going to lose a ton of time doing that. Jake Cummings had a little bit of a look for the lead, but in reality, he's just going to keep that car on the bottom and still tuck in line. They've given up a full second to Andrew Voigt. The gap was 2 seconds. It's now down to less than 1 as Hallinar stays at again. This is a little bit of a strategy play from the 057. If the caution comes out while he still has yet to serve that drive-through penalty, it'll be converted to an end of line, which is a much less significant penalty. So he's hoping that a caution comes out here in the next lap or 2.
And most of the drivers are spread apart. Has to come this time, by the way, Hallinar. Looks like he will to serve that drive-through penalty to come on down. Speaking of situations, got clarification in regards to the situation with Santos Cade. They did confirm that that had been a mistake in that part. That's the only reason mentioning here now, since 13's out of the race. It had been incorrectly assumed it was an unfair iRacing black flag at that time. So, it's currently dealt with now with Santos out of the race. That's just the current situation on why we initially seen him up at the front. One of these previous restarts before things steadied out after he had passed the pace car previously. Everybody else is thinking that's not the conversation point here. It's now down to, can you make it on the fuel? Or better yet, what's the plan if you can't make it? Do you just take a top off and no tires, Cade, if you don't get to that mark? Or do you try and go as far as you can and see what you can do, or split it up the middle? What's the plan?
I think, and this is my strategy here, but I think most of the guys are going to be able to make it to the end. If you can't make it to the end, a top off is your best strategy. But if they knew for a fact that they could make it, they wouldn't be saving, they knew for a fact that they could not make it, they would not be saving this hard. I mean, I think the lap times have fallen down quite a bit. You can see nobody's making a pass, nobody's making a move right now. It's just a situation where everybody's sitting there and trying to save as much as they can. He's got a half second, and he's the one who's breaking through the air. So his lap times being a full half second off, I think is a situation where he's saving a pretty good amount of fuel. If they can't make it to the end, your best bet's going to be to top off, don't take tires. But in this situation, I think everybody can make it to the end. The question is, how slow do you have to go to make it? Jake Cummings of this lead group was the last driver on pit road because he saved the most during that first half of this stint. So he likely is going to have to save the least, which means he's going to be able to push the hardest. I think that's really where the fuel game comes into play, and that's where Jake Cummings is going to have a really big advantage. It's only going to show itself with about 4 or 5 laps to go, so he has to sit in line and just wait it out, and then he'll be good to make a charge for the lead.
See the throttle motion right now, trying to let the car coast a little bit in the corners. Try and find a way to at least save on the throttle while also gaining time to have a chance to capitalize on the others. Interesting note heard over the radio for Dylan Beatty. The 20 machine is somehow surviving. We mentioned 7th right now. I'm not sure how the 20 is still driving straight, because if we jump to his onboard, he reported on that he's having to turn hard right down the straightaways, Cade. Look at this. This is just to drive down a straight line. He is basically having a tug at the wheel to have a shot.
And that thing is, it's crabbing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he gets all the way down to 3rd gear to try to get some, just get the car wound up and get it to get basically unstuck. I mean, he's basically got tow in that car. It wants to, I mean, you can see it. It wants to go to the left, but not appropriately. And so he's got to get it all the way down to third gear to get the car de-wedged and around the corner. He's making okay lap time. He hasn't lost another lap to the leaders. He's still only 10 back, which at one point he was dead last, right? He was involved in the first wreck of the day, which was over 100 laps ago now, close to 100 laps ago. He's been able to stick it out and move from 11th to 7th just by surviving and just with the attrition. So Dylan Beatty's going to score okay points for today. Definitely not the day that he wanted, but you can see right here he's kind of keeping pace with the lead group. Unfortunately, he's just way far behind.
Howard, by the
Battle
way,
for third.
Yeah, this is not for position. This is for him trying to get his lap back here. Howard, last time by, ran the same pace as the leader, so we'll have to figure out how well he's going to approach this year. Obviously, has a little bit better pace in the high side, and he stuffed himself with the wall with it.
Yeah, he's trying to make a really aggressive move because right here, if he can get around Jake Cummings and he can go up and get around Josh Camphor, he's going to be in a position where yellow comes out, tail end of the lead lap. He's right back in this fight. On top of that, he stays close to these guys. They're catching Garrett Greathouse just a little bit, who's at kind of a tire disadvantage from being the first one to pit. So he wants to be able to pounce on that 66 car and gain a position that way as well. Gets a nice run off the straightaway, gets on the hybrid, jumps down the straight. Jake should let him have this one because Hallinar in a position right now, I don't think he can worry about fuel saving. I think his number one priority has to be, let's get back on the lead lap in case that caution does come out. I don't think it will. You know, we've only got a few cars left in this one, but if it does, Hallinar has got to be on the tail end of the lead lap when the yellow comes out. Here's what's interesting though, Justin. He gets in front of Josh Camphor. He's going to be giving the draft to the 172 car.
See how well he gets quickly by with 27 laps to go. Coming still on the hard save, is running about the same distance, or rather speed on the straightaways at least, in the midst of the save game. Seems like it may potentially be Camphor's day here if he's able to make sure the mileage is good with how well he's been driving here today. But we have a lot of time to go to sort out how this will go for your top competitors. Keep in mind, a busy night to give a shout out to those here on Green Flag TV. Green Flag TV normally seen series such as Emerald. That's on an off day. Speed Cup Series currently is also underway at Darlington. Make sure you keep it out on the action across Green Flag TV, as CIL also is in the midst of its busy racing as you work your way towards exams at this point for those on the college campuses the next couple weeks or so. Hallinar, by the way, has caught up to the leader. Will Camphor let him by pretty easily? Rohan and Hallinar have to force it. They do have lap traffic up the road. Bit of a block, actually. A little bit unexpected there for Camphor. Does not want to give up the clean air.
And I think it's a combination of clean air, combination of if this caution does come out, he wants Hallinar trapped a lap down. That's one less car he has to worry about. We'll see how hard he fights him. Camphor may have gotten to a point where he's decided, hey, if I hammer down now, I can make it to the end of the race. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. It looks like he isn't worried about saving anymore. If he were worried about saving, I think he would want the 057 in front, like we talk about, make the other car do the work. But in this case, he's more concerned about clean air. That tells me that he is good on his number to make it to the end of the race. The speed has picked up just a little bit. I think that means Camphor has stopped playing with the fuel maps. He stopped playing games. Playing a lot of defense on this lap car right now has brought Jake Cummings and Andrew Voigt into the battle for the lead. Hallinar once again a look to the bottom. He's going to throw it to the inside. If he can get clear on exit, he'll be back on the lead lap, and he does.
So Hallinar now in front of the race leader. How does this impact Camphor's approach now that he's got dirty air?
Well, he's going to have to drive the car a little bit differently. He can't just run that bottom lane because he's on old tires, so he doesn't have a lot of grip. He doesn't have a lot of downforce if he sticks right behind the 057, but he's going to be getting the draft down the straightaway. That's going to give him an opportunity to maybe stay ahead of Jake Cummings. So this is going to play very, very interestingly into the end of this race because it makes Camphor's car drive worse, but at the same time it makes it more difficult for Jake Cummings to get to that 172 car now. Here goes Camphor. He wants to put Hallinar a lap down again.
He wants the clean air. That's what he wants. And guess what? If Cummings was to charge up, that's a buffer car. If he can keep Hallinar pinned, less than 20 laps to go. Dylan Beatty did make a pit stop. Nathaniel Fryman also did. A couple of those drivers multiple laps down in for their final stops. All while this, we'll see them be up in front of the race leaders here too, in particular Fryman. So double whammy potentially for Dirty Air in a minute.
This is exactly what we saw at Auto Club. They came to the end of that finish. There were lead lap cars and lap cars that were on top of each other. I think Hallinar, in terms of the etiquette, is going to be able to fight for this position for maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 more laps. But at the very end, I think the respectful thing to do, and I think the thing that Hallinar will do, is going to be to get out of the way and let the lead lap dogs fight it out. For the moment, though, they do have a pretty big gap up to Fryman. He's not an immediate concern for the leader of Josh Kampfer, but if Kampfer does start to put the power down and get a little bit of the draft, there will be another lap down car. That one, though, instead of being just -1, Fryman -30.
Let's take a look at the upcoming broadcast coming up here on Green Flag TV. A reminder of some of the races coming up. VSCA, that's going to be an interesting race this weekend. That's at noon Eastern for endurance racing. Same for FDR. Both of those series going to have a busy weekend. Those going to be on Saturday. Same for SRA at Bristol. Then on Sunday, Blazing Pedals with its trucks are at Dover Motor Speedway for a Sunday night thriller. Be sure to tune in. Then Motor heads over to the French countryside for a race that same evening. Then CIL Cup. Talked about that a little bit earlier tonight. They're at Darlington Raceway for what will be a tough challenge for them. The same time, High Tide Racing League races at Phoenix. A couple races to go in the quest for their championship. Pit stop time for the final time. It's Kampfer in for fuel service. And now we wait to see when the other shoe drops.
Well, this has not been the first time that I've been a little bit wrong about the field strategy, so do apologize for that, but we kind of know where they all stand right now. Josh Kampfer couldn't make it to the end, so he decided, you know what, there's no reason to sit back here and save anymore. I'm going to go power down. Everybody else, if they save a little bit more, they're going to be able to make that last stop a little bit shorter because they're going to have to top off for less fuel. So Josh Kampfer is going to go a lap down, but he's going to be the first one off pit road who knows that he can make it to the end of the race. I think he got to a point where he basically said, you know what, I know I'm not going to be able to make it, so let's run as fast as we can. Everybody else is in a spot now where they can either try to stretch it to the end. I think the only one who's in a position to do that is Jake Cummings. Based on those fuel numbers, it looks likely that the 009 is going to have to make a stop here as well.
Voigt was pushing hard in the first place to close up a lot of ground on Cummings and the rest of the race leaders. Now, keep in mind, in the case of Kampfer, he had an 8.2 second pit stop even when he came down pit road. Now, for those wondering, did he also jump on the jacks? Yes, he did in that sequence. That's what we'll see him a little bit faster here. Do you save that extra time of a couple of seconds by not lifting up on the jacks and take the risk? Voigt, he'll take the risk of going for the race lead now, especially with Hallinar parking in front, and Hallinar blocks the inside.
Voigt's trying to get clear. He does. Slides it up in front of Cummings, but not able to get to the rear of that 057. Now drops to the bottom, likely gets on the hybrid button. He wants to get both of them. Again, we don't know if Andrew Voigt can make it to the end of this race on fuel, but either way, he's at the point, and he turns Hallinar, and they both wreck. Cummings is able to avoid. Caution is out with 11 laps to go. And this is going to be really interesting because there is only one car on the lead lap that does not have significant damage. The other lead lap car was right in that wreck. That's Andrew Voigt with no right front wing.
And oh boy, this could get ugly in terms of that conversation. Lap car trying to hold on to the lead lap. You have the race leaders also trying to figure out their strategy, and this changes everything. Kampfer is a lap down. Take a look at this. Voigt about to get the wing change and hope there's not any more damage than that. Went up in the air.
And this to me looks exactly like the other two big crashes that we've seen in this race, where you have a car on the outside that's trying to maintain a constant radius, and you have a car on the inside that wants to wash up just a little bit, and they kind of come together. I don't know if there was a netcode in that situation as well. These cars are super finicky the way that the netcode is, so we'll have to see exactly what happens. Of course, Andrew Voigt's going to pit Jake Cummings. Why not? Let's come in and take some fuel and take some tires. We know that's going to get us to the end of the race for that 95 machine. Camphor should be able to wave around based on the rule that was applied to Dylan Beatty earlier in the race. So Jake Cummings is going to keep the lead here, assuming that he has a shorter pit stop than Andrew Voigt, which he most likely definitely will.
Yeah.
And that'll put only 2 cars on the lead lap.
And obviously, wave arounds, you have to think coming up. Camphor's going to be amongst those. There's going to be a busy amount of those. So let's see how long these stops go. Voigt's not even up on the jacks yet. That's how much the damage is impacting him. It looks like he did not take tires. Yeah, Voigt didn't jump on the jack. It was just the wing change. Never mind, he did jump on the jacks, but it was very quick. So, to correct myself, it's still going to be those two battling for the race lead, but Camphor's going to be on a few lap older tires here, and we have note over the radio. Lap 135, 009, EOL avoidable contact with the 057. They go with the lead lap car as the reason for caution.
And I think that's a situation where, you know, you've got to have situational awareness. The 057 in that point, he's fighting to get back on the lead lap. He's in the top 5. He's in a very interesting fuel position right here. He's going to pit with significant damage. Might be able to stay on the lead lap, even if he's limping that car around. But we'll see if he, how many required repairs he has and how many optionals he elects to take. Voigt's going to get that end of line penalty. That'll put him potentially behind Josh Camphor. We'll see what the order is depending on if the wave around is behind the EOL or if EOL is behind the wave around. But both of those lead lap drivers are going to be at the tail end of the field. So we'll see exactly what happens. Jake Cummings, basically the final driver who is having a clean race. And we're being told no wave around for
under 10 to go.
Camphor.
It's under 10 to go. So there's no wave arounds, remember, with any car. So, yeah, now this might have just handed it to Cummings here, isn't it here, Cade?
This is a very interesting one because typically you're also going to send your lap down cars to the end of the line under 10 to go, and Voigt hasn't lined up behind those. So with the end of line penalty, it's really end of lead lap cars. And so he is going to be able to line up second. I don't know if they got all of the damage on the 009 fixed. I would assume so. But we'll see if Andrew Voigt has the car to do it. Jake Cummings trying to go for his 3rd win on the season. Andrew Voigt trying to go for the 1st win of his career. It'll be 7 laps to go. And yeah, race control trying to sort this one out. It's going to keep us under caution for at least one more lap.
So, race control is trying to sort things out here. Matthew Monroe did have a black flag in sim. He's trying to plead his case over the radio, the Ball State machine. Basically, he pit with the lead lap cars out of order. Is the understanding. It is a drive-through. So, a lot of conversation on the radio, and we're coming up to 6 laps to go. Looks like Voigt will now move to the back of the line for that penalty you referred to.
And I think that makes a little more sense. It is an end-of-line penalty, not an end-of-lap penalty. So he is going to be in 2nd place. So Camphor did not get that wave around. Andrew Voigt is going to be at the very, very end of the field. Although he is in 2nd, you've got Matthew Monroe there is lining up right behind Jake Cummings, protesting that black flag. And then you have a whole bunch of lap cars, and then Voigt gets to line up behind Hallinar. Here we go, 6 laps to go. Jake Cummings just has to be clean and steady, and he could lock this race up as he heads into turn number 1 with a huge gap back to the only other lead lap car.
3 seconds, the race lead. And what's turned to an absolutely perplexing end to the day when it comes to the Arch 175. See some of the drivers at the back of the group trying to find a way to charge Voigt, yet to come down for pit road, at least for his situation. Already have the EOL on his penalty. He doesn't have it in sim. Correct there. So he's going to have to find a way to get around lap traffic, and it's already not clean.
Yeah, Alex Hallinar, I was saying it right there as they were coming to green. Alex Hallinar is not going to be too happy about letting the 009 by. His race not necessarily ended, but I mean, he was knocked out of contention basically by that, and he plays a lot of defense there. That's a lot of cat and mouse down to the bottom. We'll see if Hallinar charges the corner. This has allowed Cummings to get another 2 seconds. He's opened it up to over 5 now, and for an oval, this is an absolutely huge margin of victory. Coming to 3 laps to go, 5 seconds between first and second place as Hallinar and Voigt continue to play that dangerous game. And Jake Cummings has just set the fastest lap of the session, so he is on a flyer. No looking back for the Converse University driver.
So he'll try and keep it clean for a couple more times around. Jake Cummings, we're going to add on to the points lead. Already had his second in the point standings conversation. Not here tonight with prior commitments. But this evening, Cummings really able to capitalize as of the final few laps especially on what's turned to a chaotic one. Doesn't get a clean run out of 2 there, but he'll come up to the white flag this time by in CIL in the NAPA Longland Corp Formula College Series. Needs to keep it clean for another mile or so. White flag is out, final time around. Cummings tonight, end off the night with 20 laps led. Lap traffic moves out of the way for him. For Cummings, another win in the books for the master's student from Converse. A wild night of attrition, crashes, and in the end, lots of penalties. In the end, it's Jake Cummings who wins at Gateway.
Big win there for Jake Cummings. Andrew Voigt going to bring it back second, his best career finish in this series. Same story for Josh Kampfer, wrapping up P3. Although he was a lap down, manages to beat Hallinar to the line. Garrett Greathouse rounds out the top 5. Kind of got shuffled back on the pit strategy there. Wound up 2 laps down, but remember, started this race all the way at the rear, so 12th to 5th is something that Garrett is not going to be too upset about. We'll have the rest of the results for you here in a moment as Jake Cummings comes around to celebrate his 3rd win of the season, and he's gone 2 for 3 on the oval tracks.
So it's Jake Cummings who gets to celebrate the victory here tonight. We take the opportunity to go for some burnouts or just wait for the picture. Let's take the picture. No burnouts this time for Jake Cummings.
Came over and winked at us. I can respect that. He wants to keep that engine in one piece. Clearly, it's got a lot of power.
Let's take a look at your unofficial race results tonight. Race Control is going to have a very busy night to unpack because Jake Cummings got the win. Andrew Voigt still finishes second. Josh Kampfer, because it was under 10 to go, couldn't get a wave around, finishes 3rd. One of his best races ever in CIL. Alex Hallinar, from a crash, still finishes top 5. Garrett Greathouse is 2 laps down in the end and still gets 5th. Then Matthew Monroe was 7 down. Dylan Beatty was 12 down. Everyone else was out. Fryman, Santos, Ulrich were a part of a wild top 10. Then the rest of the field, Brendan Lyman and Nicholas Stockner were on the other tab.
Both those drivers crashed out early, fighting for the win, so a couple of laps led for each, but not great point day for Lyman and not a great one-off for Stockner. So in just a moment, we're going to have the opportunity to talk to the top 3. We'll get them pulled up here in the booth, get their thoughts on the race. So we'll get that to you here in just a moment as the drivers finish it up at Gateway. Looking forward to Barber next week.
Yeah, that's going to be fun because that's a brand newly updated racetrack on the service. So let's start things off with the race winner tonight, Jake. Didn't do a burnout here, but you get yourself some more points for the points lead. It was a very perplexing end to this one, it seemed. What was kind of going through your mind as you were basically one of 2 cars left in the lead lap?
Yeah, it's kind of enjoying it, and I was enjoying it for a while before that last caution came out. I was definitely in the best spot with Camphor and Andrew having way less fuel than me, so it was going to be interesting to see how the strategy did play out, if there was any. But yeah, then I wasn't really sure. I didn't think that Andrew getting an EOL at the end meant that he was going to be behind literally the entire field. I thought it just meant end of the lead lap, but I guess that tracks, honestly, now I think more about it. So yeah, interesting race, a little somber, of course, for other things, but yeah, good for the points. Shame Wyatt couldn't have been here to make it a little spicier. Hope he's having fun wherever the heck he is on spring break.
Well, I will ask you this. What made this track so difficult, it seemed, tonight for some of your competitors?
Well, I think the hardest part is that we didn't really get the opportunity to have any race practice with the difficulties that we had getting the session up. I think it only launched with about 10 minutes of practice, and I personally was having to fix some software issues I was having on my end with overlays and whatnot, so I didn't get any race practice. So it was really hairy first off, the first few laps, and I think I don't know, I guess people just were kind of getting excited, or maybe a little angry at times with people. It's super easy to wash up into someone, and the netcode looked really bad tonight. But yeah, it's kind of like NASCAR during the pandemic when they didn't get any practice, and they just, boys have at it, go get them, see what happens. That's how it was for me, at least.
So with that being said, Barber is the next up on the schedule. That has some changes in the iRacing service to match with real life. How do you feel about seeing some statues now stare at you on some of the straightaways?
I'm pretty sure I have event stuff set to low, so I'm not even sure if I'll be seeing them, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, I tried it out the other day. It seems to have more grip, and it seems to be a little more accurate in places, so I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too.
Anyone you want to give a shout out to, or anything you want to mention before we let you go?
Yeah, shout out to you guys. You guys have done a fantastic job this season. I'll be really interested to look back on the broadcast of this one to see what you guys made of it, and thank you to my wife and Converse Esports and Tech Sport Racing.
Congratulations on the win tonight.
Thank you.
Jake Cummings gets the victory here tonight. Penn State University's Andrew Voigt is on the podium tonight. He's with Cade. Cade, take it away.
Andrew, you had a little bit of an opportunity there at the end to challenge for the win. Walk me through the last 15 laps or so. I'm sure you've got a viewpoint on it, some things to share about how exactly that went down from your perspective.
I mean, I probably realistically on fuel wasn't going to end up beating Jake. I don't know why Hallinar's sitting there blocking for no reason. Like, he's at the front, he's a lap down, he's going to be a lap down the whole time. He's shoving it on the outside, checking up in 1 and 2. And it's just, there's no point to it. And, I appreciate all the work you guys do at the broadcast and everything. But I got some, I'd like to talk about the league administrators for tonight. There have been some great league administrators, and I've been robbed multiple times, and I can go into great detail about it. And I will, because this is the second time now that there's been an EOL for netcode contact. Half the time it goes to cars with netcode, half the time it doesn't. There's an EOL. If I'm an EOL on a lead lap, it should go to the end, but because we had a delayed green, it threw me all the way at the end. And to be quite honest, I think a league director talking about how tonight was going to be the last broadcasted race in the middle of the race is incredibly poor taste. But I mean, Green Flag TV, you guys are great, and I appreciate all the broadcasts you guys have had. I've had bad results because of, being wrecked out multiple times. Miami, you guys had mentioned, I parked the car early. I was actually really, really sick. I ended up parking the car, couldn't do anything the rest of the night, and had severe shakes and almost was vomiting and stuff. But I appreciate the broadcast tonight, but overall, I'm not even happy with where I finished, just because there's been so many issues, and I'm more mad at the poor taste from the league director tonight. So I apologize that this is not the interview you guys want here at Green Flag TV. Like I said, you guys have done great. I really appreciate all the broadcasts and stuff. I'm just really frustrated with numerous aspects of this race tonight.
Well, definitely a frustrating way to end it there, trying to drive up through the traffic. Voigt still able to bring back P2, but not able to get the win there after a lot of lap traffic and a couple of penalties there at the end. Is there anybody that you do want to shout out? We do got to have you up here on the podium. If there's anything a little bit more of a positive note, anybody you want to give a shout out to, we'll give you the floor for that now.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out Jake Cummings, obviously winning the race, good teammate of ours, do a lot of stuff together. Dylan Beatty being a trooper, sticking it out when he was multiple laps down. There are some admins that I would like to shout out who have put in a lot of work to make this season, a lot better, and we've gone past a lot of the reoccurring beefs that we've had and, some issues. Jaime Plasencia has done a great job as the competition steward. I may not always agree with his decisions, but, he's been a lot more consistent this year. And then Ben Fiore for, putting together a good track list. But again, Dustin, great job in the broadcast as always. I really appreciate all the stuff you guys do. Like I said, I'm not frustrated. I'm not frustrated with you guys. I'm frustrated with a couple aspects that have been week in, week out of problems and stuff. So I really appreciate you guys. One last shout out Deepwater Racing. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming up talking to us, and hopefully the rest of the season goes a little bit more to plan there for the driver from Penn State.
Yep. Take care, guys.
Well, that was definitely an interview to remember when it comes to Andrew Voigt. But Josh Kemper had a race to remember from his side. Josh, you get on the podium tonight. How are you feeling about your race?
Good. Had a really good race.
Now, what was going through your mind as strategy started coming to play with the fuel mod, which of course things went upside down with the caution period though?
What's going through my mind is I got screwed. Not much I could do from that position. Was having a really good race up until that point. When that caution comes out and you're still working through the pit cycle, there's really not a whole lot you can do. So, just really happy that I was able to put on such a good race for K-State up until that point.
How do you describe your efforts to try and improve in this car? Because obviously, as mentioned, your best effort this season in this car, you had a lot of bad luck and some attrition pop up previous races. What made tonight so different?
Caffeine. I work at a bank, so I work at 9 to 5 at a bank, and that takes a lot of mental energy out of me. And I've been trying to figure out what's been going wrong this whole season, and finally figured it out that it was just lacking energy. At the end of the day, wasn't able to focus. So had some caffeine before this, a good energy drink, and I think that was the common denominator.
So on that note, anyone you want to give a shout out to here tonight?
K-State. Everyone there has been amazing and awesome for letting me do this, and amazing for putting the program on there and continuing to let people use the simulator and all the amazing stuff that they do. And also Garrett Greathouse, who's been a great teammate. Anthony Savignano, and Aaron Gossler. So that's everybody I got. Thanks to everyone.
Congratulations on the podium.
Thank you.
Josh Kemper getting on the podium here tonight. Like thanks to our top three speakers during post-race coverage here on Green Flag TV. A lot to unpack tonight, but a lot to discuss, Cade. I'll leave it to you. Where do you want to take this forward?
Well, I think we do want to announce that unfortunately, the remainder of the season for the NAPA Longland Corporation Formula College World Championship will not be broadcasted here on Green Flag TV. Of course, we've seen only 12 cars out here today. It's kind of been the norm for the most of the season, and so unfortunately, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to broadcast these races that, only wind up with a couple of cars on the lead lap. So it's definitely not the easiest decision that we've had to make on the admin side, but unfortunately, it's kind of the best decision for everybody moving forward. The season is going to happen, so you're going to be able to track those points live on collegiateiRacingLeague.com. Those points are going to be updated. You can keep an eye on how Wyatt Burton, Jake Cummings, and the rest of the field are battling it out for both the student and alumni championships. And I believe we'll still be posting about our winners on our social medias. So do go on to the description there of the YouTube video. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter if you've got that. I guess X now, but keep an eye on the season. It's going to be a good fight between those two drivers. Unfortunately, we do not have the resources to produce the broadcasts, and additionally, we are not planning on bringing the Formula College Series back for the fall season. So tonight, this is going to be the final race of the Formula College World Series, World Championship that will be broadcast live on YouTube. We'll close out the season, keeping you guys updated on those points. And then from there, we'll look to bigger and better things from the CIL. So to all of you that have tuned in for the past few seasons, thank you all for coming in and watching these races, making them enjoyable, being the audience that has supported us and watched these races, supported these drivers, supported these schools, supported these teams, and supported us. Whether we were broadcasting on the CIL YouTube channel, now doing it here on Green Flag TV, either way, it's been a lot of fun, and it's going to be something that unfortunately we're going to have to miss.
It's important to obviously mention that when it comes to this series, again, the series will keep running throughout the rest of the campaign. We'll follow along and see how things go. But on that note, it's just about time to say goodbye for tonight's coverage when it comes to CIL in NAPA Longland Corp Formula College. We'll be heading over to Speed Cup Series next because, as you can see, one of the Penske paint schemes just went around for the race with less than 35 laps to go, and a lot of strategies about to break down there. But for Cade Corbin, for Dustin Olis, for Marty Sakawa, for everyone who's worked these broadcasts over the course of the season, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you next time out on Green Flag TV for more racing. Let's head over to Speed for their coverage.